Howdy, y'all. Welcome to the Rainbow Crossing Podcast, a podcast where Gen X and Gen Z discuss life's challenges and how we face them as queer people. We have these open conversations to foster a sense of community through different perspectives. My name is Julio Guzman, and with me is my friend, my roommate, my father, my grandpa, my leading male figure.
Yes, Daniel.
There you go.
I'm here. I'm here. Grandfather, really?
All of the above, you know?
Well,
I do have a grandpa, and I do love him, and I do miss him. But you can have more than one.
yes, you can. How are you, Julio? You sound better. You had a bit of a rough week.
I basically was only sick maybe probably 2 times in 2024. And usually when I was sick, it was like one day to thug it out, and then I was fine. But going into 2025, oh my God, I got sick.
Yeah.
And I've been sick.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? It's going to take me one day to heal like it normally does. And nope, it was for a couple of days. And then at the end of it, as I was like feeling better, then my asthma started kicking in. And then it felt like 2 steps back. And I'm like, oh, when is this going to be over with? But today is the day where I feel 100%, which is good because I did not enjoy that at all.
Well, I think you knocked it out pretty quickly compared to me, who lasted for weeks and weeks. This was just you getting it out of the way for the full year. It's done now.
It has
the
to
sickness
be done.
is behind you.
No more, please.
All good stuff.
It's definitely been the cold to hot. This temperature here in Texas, global warming is happening, and for it to be 70 for most of December, literally, we probably had a couple days, and then it to just get extremely cold out of nowhere. And then the day before it was 70 degrees, and then the day after that it was like 20 and 30, and I'm like, what is going on here? My body just doesn't react well to those kinds of things at all.
No.
But feeling better, thank God.
I'm glad. I think we both kind of had a bit of a rough week this past week. I shelled out some money this week that I did not want to shell out. I knew it was coming, so it wasn't a surprise. But the house has had some foundation issues, which is not uncommon here in Central Texas just because of the soil and then the lack of rain and the extreme heat. And this is a relatively new house. We've lived here for 3.5 years, first people here. And there was a crack that had developed a couple of years ago in the floorboards downstairs.
A couple of them.
Yeah. And it was time to address it. I kind of waited for a minute just to see if it would get worse. It did get worse. Mm-hmm. There were some cracks that were developing above the windows diagonally, which means foundation. So had some people out, got some quotes, and had some people here digging up the under the house this week. They came, and it was actually really interesting because we were in the house when they were kind of jacking it up a little bit from the piers that they put around. They put 10 piers around the perimeter of the house, and we could actually see a couple of the cracks disappear because the house went back to the way that it was supposed to be.
You can't even see where they were, and it was kind of like magic.
It was. So
a lot of money that costs the magic.
Yeah, but a home is such an investment, and you have to, if you're going to buy a home, you have to have some money put away to prepare for these kind of emergencies.
For sure. Well, on to other news, specifically this new segment that we're going to be calling Clouds in Color, because clouds can sometimes be a little gray and a little sad. But some news can be very colorful and brightful and full of life. So starting off with some clouds.
Yeah.
I feel like these past week, it's just been nothing but dark gray clouds, and it's been pretty sad.
Yeah.
We'll start with one of our favorite queens, super iconic, the Viv.
Yeah.
They passed away at a young age of 32.
32, yeah.
Not really sure how. We don't know much info, but it's so devastating to see someone who is so young and so captivating and talented just pass away from whatever it was.
Yeah, I don't know if all of our listeners watch RuPaul's Drag Race, and the Vivienne was on RuPaul's Drag Race UK, so people may not have watched that either. She was, however, a winner. She was the first winner from the UK, and then she went on to do the All Stars that ultimately Jinx Monsoon won. But she shined, and she was hilarious. she really held her own against all of the U.S. girls, which I'm sure was intimidating.
For sure.
And just an amazing, funny personality. I had never met her in person, which I'm really sad that I never got that opportunity to, because I've been fortunate to meet and interact with a lot of the Rue girls, and she was definitely very high on my list to meet. And she is sorely missed.
Multiple queens posting about her and
Yeah.
showing all the amazing memories and times, and just wishing that there was more time for them to experience.
Right. There wasn't any negative feedback except for Tyra. Season
Who is
2
already
winner.
canceled, so your input is irrelevant, but go ahead and share what this lunatic did.
Right. So Tyra, season 2 winner of RuPaul's Drag Race, who has always been a bit controversial, but I think people were trying to give her the benefit of the doubt to a degree in recent years. And she pulled up a tweet that the Vivienne had made in 2020, and it said, bet Tyra was fuming when she realized Netflix spoiled The Win too. Sorry, gal, you tried though. So that was 5 years ago. And Tyra, I guess, has had it on her mind for the last 5 years. So she reposted that and said, yet it doesn't compare to the fumes of the crematorium.
That's just
It's-
on a whole nother level of
It's just petty,
arrogance, pettiness,
vile, repugnant.
evil. Like,
Yeah.
this person who you share a lot of common things with passed away, and you're going to be rude about it from something that was tweeted about 5 years ago. Did it really hit you that hard?
Yeah. Even if the Vivienne was a horrible person, and they're not, because all of the other queens are saying great things about them. Even if that was the case, I mean, what's the point of bashing the dead? People are suffering, people are sad, and it just shows very poor taste on Tyra's part.
1,000%.
Well, Rue had a response to that. I don't know if you saw.
I did not, but you described it to me, and I remember seeing
Yes.
the video because it's an iconic video,
Yeah.
an iconic challenge that they used to do.
Yeah. So the Queen Mother herself made a post about it, didn't put any text with it, but just shared the video from season 2 where they did the slap challenge during one of the acting things. And it was Rue slapping Tyra and Tyra falling to the floor. And I think that kind of says it all.
Oh, for sure.
Like, you're being ridiculous.
You need to be slapped.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, a couple more clouds, sadly, because that's not the only devastating news we've had. My home state of California has caught on fire.
Yeah.
And a very aggressively fire.
Multiple fires.
Multiple fires, not just one. And it has taken over 5,000 homes from a lot of people and has displaced them. And people are trying to maybe conspiracy theory all this because, one, how interesting that the fires happened when there's 80 to 100 mile per hour winds, which obviously fuels fires to grow and carries drifts of fire everywhere else. But the right wing isn't blaming climate change or global warming, which is the cause of this. Even if it wasn't the fire started because of global warming, the winds are not normal to be 180 mile per hour winds in LA.
Yeah.
That's not normal. That's still a sign of global warming happening. And if anything, the right wings have just blamed their LA fire department chief, which is a woman and is also part of the LGBTQ community.
Yeah.
Which is kind of sad. Like, out of all the things to talk about, you're going to put your problems on this. Not the cause of what's actually happening here, whether the fire was destructive and destroying everything. We're going to blame it on a person and their capability.
Right.
Which this woman is very capable. I mean, she's been in the LA fire department for 22 years now. She's also been in EMT. Has served for over 22 years in all these things and has just multiple experience in the field.
Yeah.
To call her unqualified is one.
Right. She was a quote unquote DEI hire is what some of them are saying, which I'm pretty sure that the LA Fire Department does not have a DEI program in place.
No.
So the assertion is absurd, first of all. Second of all, the assumption is that a white female, gay or otherwise, can't do the same job that a male can do.
What's so annoying is that one of these Fox hosts, I don't even know their name because I don't pay attention to them. They all look the same. They all say the same bigotry over and over again. I just know what they say and what they do. And there was a picture of her and another two, I guess, other female fire department officers. And he just shows a picture and he goes, "This is the LA's fire department chief. Do they look qualified to y'all?" That's what he said. And I'm like, so you're just showing us a picture and asking the audience if they look qualified. That's what you're going with? Like, hello, dude. Maybe look into them. Maybe actually read their qualifications
let's take a look
and
at
then
the resume.
ask, are they qualified? Which, if you were to do that, you would see that they are qualified.
Yeah.
So that bigotry just needs to stop, and we actually need to pay attention to what is the real problem.
Yeah.
And what the real problem is we're not handling these once in a lifetime. This isn't a once in a lifetime event. Like,
Not
this
anymore.
is just the beginning of what our new reality is like in regards to how we're going to handle situations when nature takes over, and what are we going to do about it? Are we just going to let it happen like that, or are we going to prevent things? No, if anything, the right wing is trying to blame things and move on. No, we need action. We need action as people. So it's time to make the government listen. I don't know how, but we got to find different ways, because if not, this is just going to keep happening over and over again. More people are going to be losing their homes. It's just crazy that there's destruction happening all over the world. Similar destructions playing out differently, and we're viewing it as something different, when in reality, it's still the same. Like, there's still destruction happening, and people are losing their lives. People are losing their homes. People are losing their pets, their things that are valuable to them, just their life in general. Everything around you is your life. And for us to have sympathy for this and not have sympathy for that is just annoying and sad. And we need to actually start waking up and realizing that it's all the same.
Well, we're all in this together, and a lot of people don't view that mentality. I mean, that's the way we look at things, and that's why we voted the way we voted, because we want equality for everyone. We want everyone to get a piece of the pie, and that isn't how that side of the aisle is looking at it. They only care about things that directly impact them negatively. And I know some people, like, all they can do is focus on their immediate needs, and they're just struggling to survive. I get that. The people who are making these comments and who are fanning the flames, so to speak, they're fine. They're doing this very purposefully because they know it'll get their base riled up. And it's really unfortunate, because all it does is just continue to divide people instead of bringing people together at these times where people are really in need. And I think the vast majority of people are recognizing this, and they're seeing all of these people displaced, and there's genuine concern and sadness and sympathy for these people. And to try to stir up some kind of controversy around it, I mean, talk about vile. That's just, it is repugnant.
Yeah, so in these times that are crazy, all we can do is try to help out where we can.
Yeah.
The best we can, lift each other up, and try to prevent things from happening the way they just have.
Yeah.
That's going to take some time, but I think we're on the right direction. LA has been showing up for LA. The world has been showing up for LA, which is nice.
So how about an icon or I can't moment? So I've got one for you here. Queer Eye creator, David Collins is his name. We don't really see him or hear him on the show itself, but he is actively involved. He did an op-ed on out.com where he said, essentially, that listening to Trump voters is the only way forward at this point for us as a country. Does that make him an icon, or are you feeling I can't with that? And of course, you haven't read the full article.
No, I haven't read the full article.
And he talks
on that statement. Yeah, give me more info.
He talks about how Queer Eye, the show, and I know you maybe haven't seen the latest season, but you've seen several episodes.
Seasons, yeah, for sure.
And he talks about how the people that they help, some of them are Trump voters. And if you watch the show, I think it's almost unanimous that the people who they assist are always extremely grateful for what the guys have done.
For sure.
It opens some eyes for some people who maybe didn't understand what a gay person was all about. And obviously, we are more than just, hair and makeup and interior designers. And, the Fab Five are broken down into their 5 work categories. But if you watch the show, you know that these guys encompass way more than that. There's just this kindness and lovingness and this desire to be a community, to build up everyone that they possibly can. And it's obviously a really uplifting show. I'm a big fan. It has moved me to tears more than once.
Oh yeah, definitely. Some episodes have brought me to tears as well.
Yes. And what he's saying is that some of those people who we get teary-eyed over are Trump voters, or have been Trump voters, or right-leaning people. And the only way that we can bridge the gap between the very serious divide that we were just talking about here is to start listening to what they have to say.
I can kind of agree with that, but why is it that we have to listen to them? Why is it that we have to be the ones to comfort the little Trumpies who have basically gotten everything their whole fucking life?
Well, I don't know that they have gotten everything their whole life.
In regards to like the way the government is ran and like basic rights, yeah, I feel like they have, because most of them are generically white and most of them are older or have been in their own little bubble and haven't really maybe experienced discrimination the way a lot of people who don't like Trump have.
I'll definitely give you that discrimination, and I'm not arguing against anything you're saying, but I would say that I don't know a lot of Trump voters. I have some family members who certainly have voted for Trump this term and last term and the term before. And a lot of it is financially motivated. We heard leading up to the election, I just need the price of eggs to be lower. I need gas to be lower, et cetera, et cetera. And that was the motivating factor for a lot of people, I think.
Well, honey, we kind of all want those things.
We absolutely do.
And number 2, if they think that Trump's going to give us that, they're literally insane, because why hasn't he talked about that already? The only thing he's been talking about is changing Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America and trying to make Canada part of the U.S. How is that benefiting anything?
Correct. But what I think the point of this is that there's a disconnect between what they want and what they voted for.
I feel like there's a disconnect with reality.
Perhaps that is true, but we certainly believe that this is the case, and I think what they want is just someone to be on their side. And they feel like Trump is on their side and that the Democrats aren't on their side, that we put our priorities in other places, that we don't really care about their basic needs. We care about, trans bathroom rights and, these things that we do care about. But they have taken these sensationalized topics, they meaning people like Fox News, and blown them up as if that is the be-all and end-all of the Democratic Party, where we know that that Kamala had some financial plans in place that she wanted to do, some changes that she wanted to make, and that as tough as the Biden administration was in different areas, there was some headway made into lowering prices, improving the economy, all that kind of stuff. So I think it's just a matter of we feel like the Republicans, feel like no one is listening to us except for Trump. So we'll be Team Trump. And maybe if we listened, the Democratic Party, the Democratic voters, if we listened to them, maybe that could help bridge that gap. Now, there are a lot of extreme Trump people, and I think that that's what we see when we're watching social media, when we see news on television. So it has caused this divide to be even greater because we don't want anything to do with the people who are actively discriminating against people, who that's their agenda for Trump. They want a white nationalist party. That's what they're there for. But I don't think that that's the majority of people. And obviously, we don't want to give those kind of people the time of day. We don't want to listen to them. But I think that a lot of people aren't. in that situation. So I think that's what he's saying is like, we need to listen to the person whose issues just are the basic issues. They're just struggling from day to day. As Queer Eye shows, they don't have the resources, they don't have the knowledge, they just don't know how to make their life better, and leave it to some gay men to come in and listen and whip them up and turn things around for them.
I mean, that's normally what I do anyway. So I'm down to have any conversation with anybody.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I can call him an icon.
Yeah.
It's a good move for sure. And
Yeah.
we should be talking to people like that 1,000%. I mean, only way to grow is to be uncomfortable for a little bit. And sometimes the uncomfortability will bring down those barriers and make you see the other side and hopefully find some middle ground.
Right. It has to be a two-way street. Mm-hmm. I think we are willing to listen, but we really need people to listen and actively listen and be prepared to expand their bubble and their knowledge base, so we can all find this middle ground. Yeah,
For sure.
I agree.
Well, to wrap that up, I'm going to go with I can't.
Okay.
Anywho, moving on to our actual conversation of today.
Yes.
Last week, we talked about exploring new connections. This week, we're talking about maintaining connections.
Let's do that.
Which this took a lot of maintaining. Takes a lot of maintaining on my end.
It feels really easy on my end. Oh, why is that?
Because I'm working hard to make it easy for you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you.
No, I'm joking. It hasn't been hard to maintain.
Yeah.
Do we have our differences? Of course. Do we have our little fire moments? Of course. But we get through it because we know how to maintain connections.
Yes, we do. We do. I had a visitor this weekend, as you well know. My friend Barb.
Lovely Barb. We love Barb.
We do love Barb. She is a listener on the show, has been since day one.
Honestly, Barb, don't be offended by this. Nothing against the name Barb, but it's very giving like Sister of Karen, you know? The name is giving like Sister of Karen. I was like, oh my God, I hope she's the vibe. When she got here and I met her, the sweetest.
She was the vibe,
The
yeah.
sweetest. The vibe was there, immaculate, 10 out of 10. And she was just great to be around.
Yeah, she's an awesome person. We go back 22 years.
That's a long time.
It is a long time. We worked together, and she was actually my direct
You're
report.
telling me I was 4 when y'all met?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
All right. How old were you?
I must have been 10 at the time.
True. See, now I'm just going to keep trying to catch you in these acts of you aging yourself out.
Yeah. No, she was my direct report at my first big boy job. Okay. And we bonded very quickly. You know, there are some workplaces where you find your group of people and you're just bonded forever. She has a great group that I'm all friends with as well, but they all live in the Milwaukee area where she's from. And so they see each other regularly and really lift each other up in support. And none of them work together anymore. And I haven't, again, worked with Barb in 20 years, since I moved here to Austin. And there are other members of that group who are all over the country. And we have maintained our connection, which is what we're talking about here today. And it's one thing to maintain a connection from college to your mid-20s. But when you maintain a connection from your 20s into your 40s,
that's an even harder challenge, I feel like, because all that time is exploring who you are, meeting new people all the time. So like some connections just fade out.
Yeah, so much is happening in your life at that point. And so I guess the question is really like, how do we maintain our connections? Because there are times where you and I both are very content to shut out our connections, sometimes from each other even, and retire to our rooms or, have the space to ourselves. And it's good to do that. It's good to recharge and you can come out and face the world again. But our connections make us who we are. I am the person I am today because of all the people that I have interacted with, some good, some not as good. But the people who I've maintained these friendships with are really the ones that fuel me on the day-to-day basis. And they're the ones who have lifted me up over the years. We've all faced our struggles. And these are the people who, even if they're not physically present here, have lifted us up. And I know we did that for Barb. I'm not going to go into all of it, but Barb's gone through some big changes in the last several months. And when we started the podcast, she reached out to me like after the first episode or two and talked about what an impact the podcast was making on her personal life as she was going through these changes. And that really just helped us kind of refresh our friendship. It's never died away at all, but we've really been in better contact the last several months. And obviously she just came to visit. So maintaining your connections, like what do we need to do to see those through?
Well, the big question first is this connection actually something real, something valuable, something that is impactful to my life? If it is, then it is something to be maintained. If it's not, and obviously most of your journey with this connection has been rocky, it could just not be for you. So you first got to see if it is a relationship and connection that is worth maintaining. You think about everything that has been positive. You also have to think about all the times that maybe it hasn't been positive, because every connection does sometimes have its downs.
Certainly.
Most of the time, at least, has some downs at some points. And if the answer is yes, and reflecting on all those things, how were we when things weren't looking so bright? If all of that ends up being good, then that's your first sign of, okay, this is a connection that I should probably maintain.
Yeah, there does need to be some critical analysis of your connections. And I feel like the older you get, the more connections you've made over the years, and you can kind of analyze it a little faster.
Sure.
But when you're in your 20s, and you do a good job of this, you know pretty quickly the kind of people you want to keep in your life and those that you don't.
Yeah, because I know a snake when I see one. You can see them slithering down the lane from a mile away.
You can, but a lot of people are really blind to that. So it really requires some thought on what kind of connection do I have with this person? Is it a two-way street? Have they given as much as I've given them? Then you can move forward from there. But as you're maintaining the good connections, I think probably the most critical thing is the communication. How can you keep a connection without the communication? And we've got a lot of connection possibilities at our fingertips, literally, these days. So it is easier than ever to stay connected to someone. And it can be a simple text, obviously a phone call, a FaceTime, are amazing, an email.
For sure. I will say, though, we do need to practice more voice interaction communications, whether that's going back to the good old days when we were not to like those good old days, but like the good old days where we would like hit a lineup and like actually like talk on the phone and like, oh my God, what are you doing? And talking about all the gossip or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, just those moments feel more real than a simple text. I will still be appreciative of the text. And of course, texts are great. Send them out. But to fully dive into a deep connection, you need to have that realism of people, you know?
Yeah. I mean, you make do with what you can at the time, and sometimes a text may be all that you have. But I know, like David, one of my best friends, we regularly talk on the phone. I see him like once a week or every 2 weeks or so regularly. So there's not that there isn't time to talk regularly, but we'll still talk on the phone also once a week or so. And that communication is so vital because there's only so much you can express through text.
And sometimes the way I be reading texts, I'd rather just hear you say it, because you can interpret a text, an email, whatever, in any way. And sometimes that could be good. Sometimes that could be bad. Sometimes you could be getting your hopes up and it was like the most nonchalant thing. And you're like, oh my God, do they like me? And it's like, no, it was just a simple text.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
I do.
It really just depends how you read it. I prefer more voice, more real interactions instead of a text. And I think that will solidify and maintain a more deeper, real connection.
Absolutely. Showing appreciation is another, I think that's obvious way to maintain your connections. And it can be small gestures, big gestures. Just remembering somebody's birthday, it could be a much more significant way that someone shows appreciation. Barb, when she left here this morning, she had placed a thank you card on the pillow and a little Target gift card on the inside. It wasn't necessary, but it was the thought that went behind it. Yeah. And the card, it was a card that meant something to her and therefore to me. And then, of course, the words on the inside. And a gift is a nice gesture, but honestly, it was the conversations that we were having the whole weekend, and she was showing her appreciation for being here, for me just showing her around, just doing simple things. It's hard to not feel a connection with someone when they're saying all these wonderful things about you. So
For sure. I mean, appreciation can also just be shown by being there for someone, listening when they need it.
100%.
Like, you don't have to go the extra mile of getting something for someone or
Yeah.
telling them these nice things. Sometimes people just need you to be there and listen. And I've gotten better at doing that because I naturally give appreciation by speaking or trying to help out in any way that I can. But sometimes that's not taken directly because I am a very direct person. And
Oh?
sometimes my appreciation and wanting to help someone can come off as like, okay, you're just trying to fix it instead of just listening to what I need you to do.
Yeah. Active listening is obviously a really important part in a relationship and a connection with someone. And active listening isn't necessarily always easy for everyone because a lot of us are nurturers and we're fixers and we see that there's a problem and we think we know how to fix it. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. But we're ready to jump in and we're ready to help. And that is a way that we
For sure.
show our love. And
Your boy has experienced a lot. So, like, sometimes I can see how things happen or what's caused what for it to turn out the way it did. And then sometimes my delivery can feel kind of like blame. And in reality, it's more like just trying to show you where the problem lies. But sometimes you just have to listen.
Right. Right. If you listen long enough, it will show you what path that they need you to go down. I know that you are evolving in that way. I've seen it.
I sit a lot more quiet now before I speak.
Being intentional with your relationships is super important. I think scheduling time for one another, like it's one thing, and I am guilty of this because I love a lot of people. I have had a lot of wonderful friendships in my life, and I will often sit and think, I just love Olivia. I just love David. These people are just amazing. And I see them post on social media and I see them doing these amazing things. I'll like it. I maybe leave a comment even. But if we are more intentional with how we interact with one another, if you're thinking about somebody and you have a moment, you may not have time for that phone call, but a quick text. Hey, I was just thinking about you. I just love what you're doing with this or that. I miss you, whatever it is. But to be intentional with your relationships, it shows that you really do love them, that you really are invested, and it will just solidify your relationships, I think.
For sure. And over the years, like, doesn't matter if you have a big pool of friends or a small pool of friends. And I'm not saying I rank my friends, but I will say I take everything into consideration in regards to, like, let's say I have had some friends, which they're still friends, flake on me a couple more times than other people. They start working their way down that list. For me, at least,
Yeah.
I'll still love them. I'll still hang out with them when they follow through. But the energy that I have to maintain that connection gets a little less important to me.
Yeah.
And I start giving more energy to the people who are showing up for me, who are wanting to be around me, who are reaching out to me in regards to hanging out or doing this certain activity or whatever it is. Because at that point, I'm like, okay, this feels like a two-way street. And don't get me wrong, when I am with those friends who maybe have flaked with me a couple times, it's still great. The vibes are great. But I know that I just give more naturally, and you just kind of have to find that balance of being intentional with those who also want to be intentional with you.
Sure.
And that's when you will maintain a better connection, and that connections that you have with those people will be better than anything you've ever had.
Yeah.
Because you're investing in them.
Yeah, relationships evolve over time, and it took me a long time to recognize that just because I'm close with someone today doesn't mean I'm going to be close with them.
Oh, I've had so
year
many
from
close
now.
friends. Like, I've had about like 4 or 5 different best friends in my just 18 to now. And that goes from like being with them nonstop for 2 years, like over and over again. Like, I'm going to their house every weekend. We're doing X, Y, and Z together. We're going on hiking. And it's just like, this is my best friend. And then all of a sudden, boop, something happens
Yeah.
where things just fall apart.
Yeah.
And maybe that was consecutive things happening over and over again where we're just like, you know what? This was lovely, but we have to go separate ways. Did I learn a lot? For sure. And we probably both learned a lot. But every single connection that I tried to maintain, some of them I still have today, but some of them, unfortunately, had to be done with for better or worse. But that also has to do with time and seeing and being tested with, is this connection real? Am I strong enough to maintain it? Or am I going to let it fall because sometimes things aren't meant to be?
Yeah. And a lot of that is also intentional. It's going the opposite way, but you are being intentional with your friendships. And we make choices every day to be friends with someone or not be friends with someone. And that is, in this case, a very intentional thing. And we're doing it to better ourselves and to better the other people who are around. So another thing to remember with your connections, with your relationships, that conflict is going to happen. But it's the forgiveness part that's essential. Obviously, it's repairing the friendship, the connection, the work that goes into that. Because I mean, you and I are a great example. We don't have a lot of conflict, but we have some conflict.
We're gonna be honest here. It has happened more than we started working together.
Well,
like,
yes.
Now that we've been doing this, there has been a little bit more conflicts than we used to have. But we work through it in the way that we need to.
There are added layers, and anytime we have a lot of layers to our relationship.
Oh, for sure.
So of course, the more layers you add, whether it's you're in a romantic relationship, a professional relationship with a friend, you have to be very careful how you navigate that. But with the understanding that conflict happens, and this is something that still takes me a little bit of practice to get through, is that just because conflict happens doesn't mean the connection has been severed or is over. It means that you just need to put in a little work to repair if you deem the relationship is worth it. And I don't think that there's ever been a question in my mind that our relationship isn't worth the time and the effort into forgiveness and repair and to working on myself.
For sure. And just because you're practicing these things doesn't mean that it works with every single person the same way. Like the way I maintain our friendship is completely different how I maintain a different friendship with someone else. Because let's say we do get heated. I know sometimes it's best to just sit back and listen and let things calm down before we keep going. And for some people, I know that they might need me to be a little bit more vocal with them to get them to be more real into the middle ground of where we're at in reality. So it really just takes getting to know who they are to maintain that connection.
Right. And again, that goes back to the last point we were talking about being intentional. You are thinking through how your relationship with me is different than your relationship with that other person. And the thought that goes into that, how does this person react to problems? How do they react to conflict? Goes a long way into maintaining the friendship in the long run. And it just really says a lot about a person who does that kind of thing and doesn't paint everyone in one color, because we're all different. We all react to problems differently.
For sure. I used to give the same treatment to everybody, and I realized that didn't work very quickly.
Yeah.
Because I'm not saying you shouldn't be yourself. You should always be yourself. But people take things differently.
Absolutely.
Everyone does.
Absolutely.
So like you sometimes do have to change the way you might say something, or your intention behind it has to be delivered differently to express what you're feeling or to get them to understand where you're coming from.
Right. So another point with maintaining connections is a challenging one, I think, and that's just adapting to life's changes. So you and I have lived together for almost 6 years now.
Wow, already?
Yeah.
That is a while.
It's been a minute. But one day, you're going to move out.
And I see you crossing your fingers. Is this the year? Is this the year? No, it's not the year. Well, who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
Who knows?
But, you're going to move out eventually. One of us could get married. one of us, not me, could have kids. There's a lot of things that could change in our lives.
The future is limitless.
Yeah, I mean, you could move to a different city. There are all these different things that happen in relationships that change a person's lives, and therefore changes the dynamics in the relationships.
For sure.
So you got to be ready to adapt to that if the friendship is worth keeping. And it may mean that you just don't get to have a conversation with them every single day.
1,000%. I will say the thing that I am very good at is I've been through so many different workplaces. I've been through so many different cities, so many different people. I just meet a lot of different things from being involved. All of the connections we had have always been real. And in that moment, I'm still making time to meet them where I can, when I can. And at that moment when we're together, we're going to have the best time because I still care about you.
Yeah. It's definitely not the quantity of time that makes a relationship. It's the quality of time. And Barbara and I experienced this weekend when she was here. The last time we saw each other was 5 years ago. But it doesn't change our friendship. We didn't miss a beat. We came in, and it doesn't hurt that we're both kind of chatty folks. So, like, the conversation...
Very, very chatty.
The conversation never hit a lull.
At all. Anytime I was ready to take a breath, nope, words would keep coming out. And I'm like, okay, word.
Yeah.
Do you? I love to listen.
That's good, because I think that's about all you're able to do when we all went out to lunch together. But it's the quality of time that you spend with someone and the shared experiences that you have with someone and the practicing of the gratitude that you have with someone. And your life circumstances will change, but as long as you're practicing those kind of things, your relationship isn't going to suffer at all.
For sure. You don't need a tremendous amount of time to have a meaningful connection, to maintain a connection.
Right.
It just has to be intentional. It has to be meaningful. It has to be purposeful. You have to be willing to show them that you care in any way that you can. Might not be all the time, but hey, I'm here.
Yes,
You know?
Absolutely. So I'm going to challenge you and me and our listeners to reconnect with someone this week. So I don't know if you have somebody in mind. I have somebody in mind for me. And I'm just going to reach out and it's not going to be a big deal. I'm just going to...
For sure.
I was thinking about you, and I hope you're doing well, and let me know what's going on. And
Definitely.
I hope I can see you soon.
I mean, I'm always down to chat with anyone. Literally, what happened? This was like 2-3 months ago. Someone who I haven't talked to since high school, like, she randomly called me.
Yeah.
On FaceTime.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, why is she calling me? I was like, did someone like steal her phone and like I'm about to get like blackmailed or something? I don't know what's going on. I answered it and then she goes, oh my God. And I'm like, are you okay? And then she goes, well, we were just calling. It was her and one of my other friends that I was with in high school. And then she was like, we were just calling people to see who would answer from high school. And you were the only one who answered. She's just like, you're just so real for that. And I'm like, I'm going to be there for whoever. If I've had some significant impact in your life or vice versa, or I consider you a friend still, or if I were to see you, I would be excited either way. So yeah, I'm going to pick up the phone. And just like that, it's still a meaningful connection.
Yeah.
And somehow maintained a spark.
Yeah. And you never know who's thinking about you also.
Exactly.
And so it's so important to share that, to share.
And reach out to people like we're challenging.
Right. Exactly. We don't know how much time we have and how much time we have with the people that we do care about and think about and who have meant something to us in the past, in the present. So yeah, let's just do a little reconnection homework this week and see how that goes.
That sounds like a great idea.
Okay.
Well, hopefully you listeners have gotten some great advice from this Maintaining Connections episode, but that's all we have for y'all today.
So please like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next week.
Yes, bye. Love y'all.
Bye.